Hello and welcome along to our Think About It sessions, our weekly snippet of empowered leadership discussions that we have every Thursday lunchtime. So welcome along. Tienie, hello, welcome along.
Thank you. Hello, Kirsty. It's been a great week from an activity point of view, and love
It
this
has.
topic today.
It has. You've been out and about in Greenwich University, have you?
Yeah, Greenwich Uni,
Representing the
and
brand?
yes, and talking to a couple of graduates and business students about
Brilliant.
what to expect when they come to work.
Exciting. I love it. So, this week we are talking about change management. Now, if you've listened into last week, you might think, oh, I'm sure you talked about change management last week. We talked specifically on change management and AI last week around the changes that AI is going to bring, around how we can tap into AI to help us with change. But today we're going to just really anchor back into change management within an SME, within your organization, for you as a manager, regardless of your size of business, whether you are a micro, small, medium organization. We want to just bring a different perspective and help you navigate change, because we envisage 2025 being a significant year for change with everything going on external to our businesses. So we just want to kind of tap in to share some tips and what we come across regularly in businesses, and just share what we do a little bit within our leadership academy. We talk about change in everything that we do, because it's really important to understand how to support yourself, your business, and your teams through it. So, Tinie, this is your area of expertise, so I'm a little bit happy for you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Quite a few people, after we had the other artificial intelligence and change and how to manage that for ourselves, quite a few people looked me up, and we had a conversation, and hence us thinking that bringing change management per se is not a bad idea in our Think Again sessions. And closer to the beginning of the year, and we've got an anchor change management model that we template as soon as we get involved in change management initiatives that businesses apply. And it could be the smallest thing. You've got a new member of your team, or you've hired someone new to join your team. How is that whole team dynamic going to shift, and how are we managing that change? And a lot of us, I would say 98% of businesses out there say, welcome to day one. There's your onboarding. Here's the team. Let's, fingers crossed, hope you get on. Let's get this thing done. This is their field of expertise, and plug and play. Whereas, going through the process a little bit, slowing things down, creating a good change experience for everybody, and offering clarity in that space, not a bad idea.
There's two things when you were chatting there that came to mind of what we consider when we support people. There's a scale of change management, like you've rightly said, and I think it's important to recognize that just because it's not when we think of change management, we think, especially around projects, we think of like really huge ones, whether it's restructuring, acquisition, like literally like the biggies that's going to have significant impact on the structure and the operations of our business, right? But like you said, the change happens all the time, and that change could be internal, it could be external, depending on what is going on outside of your business. Like, it could be so small, but then there's how we respond to it, which is the second thing. And we as a business get to choose whether we are reactive or proactive around change. And it might be that we don't need to be proactive. We're happy to see what happens. We're happy to see where it flows. And that might be something that we have less control over, the change. But equally, we can choose to be reactive and let me change that. We can choose to be proactive and do something about it, or we can choose to be reactive depending on what actually happens and what flows through that change. And I think a big part of that decision, if it's intentional, is the size and impact on the day-to-day, on the business as a whole, isn't it? So understanding the scale of like where the change is. Do we need to be proactive and do something? Do we need to just sit back and react and see what happens?
Yes. And so for me, the crucial impact of managing change properly is the rate of change and the impact of the rate of change. Now, if you want change to be a slow burn, don't do anything. just try and make it happen for yourself in a minuscule kind of approach. Or if you want to gain traction within the change initiative, if you want it to make your company and transform your business to a business that is going to be different, put something and a good structure in place. And for me, there's kind of 4 key things that stand out. The anchor model has got its own 6-step process, and we dive deeper into each of those, and we map it out and spend time where we need to spend time in some of the sections and spend less time in others. But the 4 key things that stand out for me is think about it. Think about the change that's going to be happening. Think about who it's going to impact, how it's aligned to your strategic intent. What are the things that you want to see are different as the cause of this change? And then identify who is going to actually do this for you. Who the teams are that's going to be impacted, what's going to be different. Shape the change. What are the behavioral attributes that we're looking for? What is the cadence and the rhythm of day-to-day working that's going to change that we need to get into? So let's start shaping that so that eventually it gets to the role modeling of the change. And as soon as you get to the role modeling of the change, it then starts to settle into your business, and then you can measure impact. So it's those kind of things that you need to consider even when you're hiring someone new, or introducing a new project or a new process into your business. There are steps to take to make the rate of change happen as quickly as what you want it to.
I think something important there as well is everyone's appetite for change is really different. So just because as a manager, as a leader, as someone pushing the change in the business, doesn't necessarily mean everyone that's coming on that journey with you is going to have the same appetite. And I think stopping and thinking, like what you said is your first stage there, is like understanding that when people of any size group are involved in a change, that's going to bring also emotion with it, people's appetite for change, people's reluctance to change, people's excitement for change. And I think it's understanding who you've got, what you've got, and what does that look like, because that's going to dictate in some degree in the speed and success of that change. Yes.
And so building on that, there was a business that I was helping with in North America, I think, who was introducing a new division into their already existing 4 division strong business. And it doesn't, and initial thoughts were, we'll just map our most successful division's methodology onto this new division's way of growing it and getting it to develop. And eventually, after some discussion, we changed the format in a sense that, yes, the resources are the same, and the systems and operations are the same, and the time you start and the time you leave stays the same. But the whole team needs to align to the offering that this new division needs to bring as a representation of this business brand. And so thinking through what that looks like and identifying people in your business that are already great at that potential new division and the orientation towards the values you're bringing to that, let's ask them to come up with a plan on how we would do that should that new division come to fruition. And so identifying people that could help you, that are already in play in your business, that could help with that new division. So we spent about, I'd say about 6 weeks just ebbing and flowing through that and workshopping it on a weekly basis and getting it refined. And so once we introduced to the business that the new division is going to be started, and these are the people that are going to heading it up, it wasn't a surprise.
And
Because
they've had
behind the
their input,
scenes,
right? They've
yes,
had their say.
they've created that new
Yeah.
division and what it looks like. And so the rate of change happened quickly. In 6 months' time, it was stood up. And so it's the way that you approach it, and offering its durability and the respect it requires. And, thinking about it, who's going to be doing it, get them involved, shape it in a way that you need it to be. And then what does the role modeling look like that's required?
Because I think, and please share your opinion, but when I've ever come across change management from within an organisation or supporting, it is the reluctance of change. It's people feeling like they've got no voice, that it's been done to them. Why should they get involved? Because this is going ahead anyway. And all you're doing is creating tension between where you are and where you want to be, and the speed and time that's going to take. So absolutely taking people on that journey, getting them involved, asking them their opinion, getting them involved in that solution of what that looks like. It makes people feel seen and heard, doesn't it? And it makes such a difference when it comes to the application of that change.
Yeah. And in one of the approaches, not this particular business, but in another one that I helped, there was a person there that had long tenure and was tired and didn't want to get involved. And as soon as we introduced the change and asked them to mentor folk that were going to be helping initiate that change, the light just went on in them. And so helping someone just identify and exchange knowledge and help other people refine the change that's going to happen also helped someone else that was a bit lethargic in their role. And so don't write people off just because you think they're waiting for their pension, so to speak.
But a lot of sometimes that exact situation, I have had that conversation with managers so many times, right? Like, can we just get rid of this person? Can we just pay them off? Can we just because they're difficult, right? They don't want the change. They don't want to come on board. It's like, well, have you actually asked them what they do want? And it's that assumption that because they've been around forever, they might be a bit, not kind of innovative looking forward. It's almost like there's no value, where there's so much value, there's so much wisdom. It's like, how do we tap into it? And sometimes people don't want to be there, and that's okay. And that comes back to going, this isn't right for you, this isn't right for us. Let's mutually agree we're going to part ways in the most, amicable way possible, right? That's not to say change. Success. Let's get one thing clear. I think successful change doesn't mean getting everybody that's with you now into the future state, because they might not be meant for the future state. And that's okay. And I think sometimes it's like defining what that successful future change looks like for yourselves in an ideal. And then it's almost helping people get there. And I'm going to share my train analogy, Tienie, because I always use it. Whenever because we teach this in our accreditation, and we talk about it a lot in our leadership academy. It's about, I always use the analogy of a train because I'm really visual. So the train's in the station, and the station is where you are, but the train has a new destination, and that train is leaving the station at some point, regardless. So all the people you have now are on the station, and some people will be running for the train, going, this change is so needed, I can't wait for it. The early on boarders, the excited. But you're also going to get people who are running in the opposite direction to out of the station, going, this is not for me. But then you're also going to have a big group in the middle that kind of might need an arm around them, might need to be just explained in a different way, help to be shown things. So you're going to have people approaching the train at different speeds with different feelings about it. And it's your role as a manager and as a leader and as a business to help people get on the train if they're meant to be on the train, so then it can go off and change. So I think understanding that we're not just going to not everyone's going to be queuing up for the train is what I'm trying to say. It's up to us to understand how do we help people get on. And that is our role, isn't it? As a manager and a leader and as a business, that responsibility sits with us. It doesn't sit with the employee to get on the train because we've told them to get on the train. It's a collaborative journey. Yeah.
No, definitely. And look, make no mistake, um, you can get as many people to buy into the change initiative up front. There are going to be people that are going to be resistant to it anyway. And that's okay. But then also sometimes there is going to be change that needs to happen out of desperation in a business to save the business potentially.
Yes.
And that needs to be communicated transparently with the people that are going to be impacted by the change. And so then, there are changes that happen that are done too. Changes, so sometimes they do happen, but it's how do we do that in a collaborative and kind way.
And you're right, it might be external that is happening to the business. It's happening, it's being put onto the leadership team, it's being put onto them. So there isn't that, I suppose there's the planned and the unplanned, and going back to the proactive and reactive, it's how we manage it and how we deal with it and how we take people along for the ride. And I think something you mentioned there, which I think is sometimes missed, but is absolutely at the core of any change, is the communication and understanding how you communicate, how often you communicate, how you're giving people a voice to speak back and to share their concerns. And there's if the communication is correctly considered, I think it makes the change a whole lot easier from my experience.
Yeah. And in our anchor change model, there is the defining the vision, negotiating and shaping that vision. And already in those places, you're starting to create clarity around what the communication is going to be. What does the plan look like? Removing the obstacles that are getting in the way for change, and then honoring the change. And what I mean by honoring the change is that leadership team haven't come in and said, you got to change this. Yes, that's the team that's doing the change initiative. We're not going to back them up. So the honor needs to come from the people that have brought the big idea to the conditions you're working in from change, and do role modeling themselves related to that. So the honor comes from the top right down to the person that's actually implementing the change, and then looking at the ongoing, using your credibility that and currency you've gained from the change management piece, and creating resilience in the business and maintaining it. And from an ongoing and resilience perspective in the anchor model, we do measurements on how is this shaping? How is it shaping the perception of our business against our competitors? Are we becoming pioneering now? So it's all those things that then have a larger impact that we also start thinking about when we initiate this.
And I'm thinking from a support perspective from change, like business coach and support. Like, I know we support change from a coaching aspect, but also from a organizational development perspective. But coaching plays a huge part, or could play a huge part in a successful change, right from leadership to implementation to teams to people that are highly impacted. Like, having someone as a coach, as a support, as an outlet can really help and aid, can't it? And that's why we talk about it in the accreditation, because it's just such a significant part of business that coaching can get involved in.
Yeah, it's a crucial element. Other than the discussion piece with the people that are going to be implementing the change and letting them help you create what that looks like, that requires some coaching for a continued thought process to then manifest itself into the change. But also, then once the change initiative has been sparked and it going into the business, having a team of coaches of 3 or 4 come in and coach people in the business around what's happening and how they're trying to help themselves within that space of change, offers a secure transition and an increase in role modeling of that change, which will affect the rate of change tremendously.
Yeah. And it also gives people that thing of like feeling heard and seen, because they've got an outlet, they've got someone to support them through that. And I know what we're talking a lot about, kind of really considered change, and we say, like, you know, this is a really great example of support and coaching, but people might be sat listening going, I don't have the resources, I don't have the capacity, we move at such a pace. So let's talk about the kind of top 3 things that we see going wrong, challenges with change that we've seen, and then let's give people a really simple 3 things that if you're sitting thinking we about heading to some change, here are some top things to take away from today.
Yeah. So 2 things that people do wrong is assume everybody knows once they've announced what the change is, that what the change is. They don't give a clear discussion or have a fireside chat or a town hall in the business, giving clear specifics of what they feel the behavioral change will look like, the strategic change will look like, and the economic change will look like. So none of that happens. So there's an assumption that happens. Oh, we'll just let it see where it happens. And then the other piece is trying to be too quick. Take your time. I know you're a fast-paced organization that needs to turn on a dime. That's an untruth and a fallacy. Take your time, make sure you get the first step right, which is think about it, understand the impact on the first 90 days of the change to your business, and in 5 years, those things need to be more or less the same. So it's think about it and may have a clear strategy and understanding of what that looks like, who is going to get involved, would be my first step in this. And then the second piece to take, sorry, go for it.
What's the consequences of those problems, challenges happening, mistakes?
Good people leave your business because they feel they could have helped with the change management, and you've just assumed that they'll go along because they've got tenure or they're your star player or whatever the case is. So be careful of that assumption. Because people that are great can find a job elsewhere. How do you retain them, especially when you change? And another consequence is work goes to mediocre. Mediocrity creeps in.
Yeah, for me, it's the worst thing that I've observed of bad change management is you've changed away from the current, to this middle ground where nobody knows what's happening. You haven't got the benefits of the change because you haven't fully operated the change correctly. So you have the worst of both worlds. So you have people that are really annoyed, really confused, they're not feeling involved or in any way or form of this change, but neither are you reaping the benefits because it hasn't actually been executed correctly. So it's literally this no man's land where great people will leave because they don't want to be there. Yeah.
So the 2 things is don't assume and take your time. So those are the things that I feel people get wrong. The 3 things that I think that guys can take away when they're listening to us today is really think about it. And even if it's closed doors and it's just you and someone else talking through, don't think about it with 10 other people in your business because there's rumor mill and all of that. So make sure that when you open the door on change, you've thought it through thoroughly, you know who's involved, you know the consequences, you've thought through some of the consequences. So the think about it piece is a critical piece for this. And while you're thinking about it, get a slogan for your change management initiative. We're going to rock the world with our blue sky thinking, or get a slogan for the change management piece for yourself while you think about it. And then the second thing to take away is when people are role modeling this, what does that look like? And how do you incorporate that in your change management plan?
Yeah, I love it. Something that I would add on to there as well is we sometimes get stuck in an echo chamber of this change is right for the business, especially if you are a leader, because people are thinking if this is what you want, they're going to have to support that, whatever it is. So I would always say get someone who's going to give someone permission to challenge your thought and play devil's advocate. to challenge your thought process, to go, well, what if that doesn't happen? What's the consequences? What's the fallout of that? And I think why that's really important is because when there's a leadership team, especially as the leader or the manager, people will just say yes, people will go along for the ride, people won't stand up. But actually, if you give someone the role or permission to say, right, I want to be really challenged on this, you could even go and use AI to go, right, rip apart this idea. Like, what am I not thinking about? What am I being blind to here? Because that end vision for you is the tunnel vision. And sometimes put us in an echo chamber, we don't see past that. So getting someone to play devil's advocate and absolutely give permission to challenge what you want to do.
Yes. Measured thinking and emotional intelligence are two key things that need to flourish during a change management initiative. And in one of the projects that we had a graduate lady that had all of those attributes. And we then also had a mature person in the business that then mentored her through this whole change initiative. That team is running to this day with great success.
I love it. And I think being open to the potential pitfalls and failures and really kind of like, if we open about it up front and not pretending that it's all going to be rosy in the garden and this is going to be perfect, like when things do happen, we kind of already pre-prepared and gone, all right, we expected this at this point, like this is how we're going to navigate it. And that level of calm, controlled leadership gives a very different energy to your team than, oh no, it's gone apart, it's gone wrong, what we're going to do. Then that comes into the reactive changes that we, rather than being proactive. So, brilliant.
Sometimes when we think about, this is going to be changed and this is going to be brilliant, the whole process moves it into a bit of a slightly different direction that is even better.
Yes. Yeah. And I always say, whilst we have a goal in mind and whilst we have a future vision and we know what that is very definitively, almost don't become attached to how we get there, because we might get somewhere better if we allow ourselves to go off piece here, but with intention and control and understanding. Whereas because sometimes we can be so rigid in our thinking of like, right, this is step 1, that's step 2, tick, step 3, tick. Whereas actually step 1.A is the best route, or 3.B might be the better route,
Yes, exactly. Brilliant. It's a big topic for the time we have, but you've got to do it right.
And I know we've really talked very top level, but hopefully there are lots of different models out there. Anchor change management, which Tienie mentioned that we use, but there are lots of others out there that you can use for yourself. But just really stop and take the time and think about it, and all those elements that Tienie mentioned from the model. And hopefully you've had some tips and something to think about if you are going through some change, but also you're a little bit prepared if you do get some change in the curveball thrown your way. But if you would like us to support you in any way or have a conversation about something coming up, please just drop myself or Tienie a message. Come and connect with us on LinkedIn. And thank you very much for coming along and listening. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Kirsty. Thanks.